Hey there, Editor Bryan here as I am doing this in post. Today's video is just a little bit different. I was having some stuttering issues with Spotify. I believe it was buffering, but honestly I'm not sure. I've never seen Spotify do this before. Regardless, there were parts of my reaction where the song cut out, and I had to do some finicky stuff to get Spotify to play the next portion of the track. But this is a song that I don't think a second reaction would have been as good for. It's one of those things where the first time through is going to be very different than your second time through. So in older situations when there were some issues during recording of the reaction, I have just re-reacted to it. Primarily because those reactions I think are more cerebral, they're more analytical, and as long as I remember generally what I wanted to talk about, the video I think still carries its weight. But at least during this reaction, it's very physical. The way that I process the song and stuff like that, I wanted to retain that in the video, and I wasn't going to be able to recapture that naturally on a second reaction. So there will be some visual jumps where I've had to cut out those awkward pauses where Spotify was buffering, but audibly it should sound like the song is perfectly stitched together from beginning to end. This is the best way I think I could go about doing it. It's not perfect, but like I said, as far as I'm concerned, it's the best approach to it. So without further ado, this is already going on a bit too long, but I just wanted to nip that in the bud before anybody in the comments asked me about any of the oddities that are about to show up. So with that said, enjoy the reaction. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. If you're wondering why that was different, it's because it's 9 o'clock at night. I never record this late, and honestly, I'm a bit loopy. Judging by the last video we just did, I think I'm still capable of doing a good reaction, but yeah, I never make videos this late. Alright, let's get into it. This is a special selection. It comes at us from John. We're going to be looking at Rainer Landfermann. He is the ex-vocalist of Bethlehem. This is a solo project of his featuring his brother Robert on double bass, who is a jazz bassist, which is very cool and also very confusing and big amounts of whiplash. We just came off with the death metal band Bloodbath. That's what I literally got done listening to 7.5 minutes ago. Alright. 10 minutes is about good for palate cleanser, should be good, but you know, I'm letting you know. This is very strange because this album art does not tell me that we're listening to Rainer Landfermann. As I mentioned, he was the lead vocalist for Bethlehem, which is black metal. This project also features a double bassist, a jazz bassist. His brother Robert, I think is what that said. So, yeah, I read ex-black metal vocalist, and then I see this and read jazz bassist, and I have no idea what to think. Let's just dive in, see what's going on with Kunstvoll.
Mein Name ist Rainer Landfermann.
Yeah, oh, that's pretty good.
Fast
Very cool bass line. I don't know what time signature we're in. There was poly meter going on there, and I'm not sure what was the real meter, like what would be written down. I don't. I do find his vocals really impressive, though. Another beautiful bass line. Definitely not my cup of tea vocally, but there's a lot of control and skill in it to do it in a way that's non-damaging. So we have a pretty standard jazz walking bass line there. All right.
I want to talk about expectations real quick. I think it's important for this track. I kind of went over where my mind was at coming into this. I knew he was an ex-black metal vocalist, but he had his jazz bassist brother in the personnel. Also, as I mentioned, the album art up there just does not read black metal at all. And like I mentioned in the earlier video from today on Bloodbath, typography is, well, it's really important. The way that you organize your name, your band logo, or whatever, tells the audience so much about what they're in store for. Everything about the album art here is clean. It's pristine. It has a ballet dancer on it. And his name is written in very clear typography. Even has what I assume to be his signature at the bottom, right under the album title. None of this says metal to me. We start the song off, and there's a piano. Mostly atmospheric. I actually still had an inkling of saying, oh, this could still go in a black metal angle, but again, not black metal. Where does this sit on the album? Number 2. I'm kind of curious if the first track is similar to our piano intro on this one, and we do have a piano introduction to the album. Regardless of if that's everybody's first experience with this, my experience told me maybe black metal, but probably not. Most signs point to no. And the song starts off, and I'm like, okay, still no. A blackened element. Sure, black metal is real big with atmosphere. We have atmospheric writing here. That makes sense. You know, we've seen a lot of side projects from black metal musicians who still utilize that heavy atmosphere in their writing. It's so prominent within black metal's composition, you can't help but carry it over when you explore other genres. Perfectly fine. But then we kind of do go into a black metal element. We have blast beats, we have 16th note bass kicks, we have shrieking. It is heavy, it's weighty, it's distorted, it's gnarly, it's aggressive, it's extreme. There are very few moments in here that I think move away from a metallic angle. Which is interesting because I don't really think this is a metal song. It just still lies within a lot of metallic trappings. And so that's really interesting because timbre-wise, aside from the drums and the shrieks, everything else in here is not metal. Our bass certainly doesn't sound like a metal bass. The piano doesn't. So it puts it in a really interesting position. It almost feels, at least, again, within my experience of just having this song, I was supposed to be led astray to have the rug swept out from under me. To fall into that false sense of maybe it's not black metal. And so I was left a little stunned at the beginning and certainly in the wrong mood. It took me some time to shift gears and get in place. I'm sure my face showed it. I have no idea what my face looked like throughout most of this. I was all inside my mind. As far as I know, my body was completely just blank and rigid, and I just stared ahead because everything, my entire 5-minute experience here, at least the first 4 minutes of it, it's all cerebral. I was right up in here the whole time trying to figure out what in the world I was listening to. So, yeah, if I was a bit more rigid and visually apathetic for this reaction, that's why.
So like I said, expectations are really important. And sometimes, like with this, putting me in the wrong mindset might actually be a bit of a payoff as far as the reaction portion. It might be entertaining to watch my brain short circuit and have to reboot after bar, 8 or whenever, when things went to hell with this. What a wild thing. So let's talk about the music though. Right? That's what we're here for. I want to start with the vocals primarily because, like I said, during the reaction, I'm impressed with them. When we listen to stuff like this, which I associate with DSBM, it's shrill, it's shrieky, and it's designed to at least appear to be pushing the limits of the vocal cords. These are the types of shrieks you would expect somebody in pain, with no regard for the well-being or health of their vocal cords. There's definitely no intention of longevity to it. They just need their voice to be heard in hopes of being helped or rescued to get away from whatever is inflicting this pain or trauma. DSBM is rife with this type of vocal style, and something that, if I recall correctly about it, is a lot of people utilize a style that is not sustainable. That's kind of the point of it. It's part of the S in the DSBM, is that you're inflicting pain on yourself, and it adds to the passion and art and whatever all that stuff is. I can't say I fully subscribe to it, but I can see the appeal. But what I really like about this is that, unlike those other styles that tend to also be accompanied by black metal production, this has a clarity of delivery. I can hear what he's doing exceptionally clear. And what I like about that is that, at least to my ears, there seems to be something sustainable about it. I'm not a vocal coach. I can't hear how someone sings and then imagine how they're creating it. That's not my thing. But for whatever, I got a gut feeling about it. All right, you guys want to call me a hack for using my gut instead of my brain? Go for it. I could be totally off base with this too. I really want to hear somebody like, Beth Roars or Elizabeth, is that who it is, over at Charismatic Voice, take a stab at this. And I'm curious what their take is, if they find this to sound at least a bit more stable, especially since both of them, I think both, at least Elizabeth has a bit more experience with metal vocals. I don't know if Beth has. Actually, Elizabeth would be really good because she did all that stuff with Will Ramos and going to the throat doctor and checking out how everything works down here. Like, she's really interested in the science behind it all. I'm curious if she has like tuned her ear to hear stuff, because like I said, I just have a gut feeling. It feels sustainable for whatever reason. It doesn't feel like there's stress or tension. It just feels like a sound he can create just casually. And I think another thing is that across the 6 minutes here, which you assume it's not just one recording. This wasn't, come in, record for 6 minutes and head out. Most recording sessions, it's going to take longer than it. You're going to do multiple takes. There's a consistency across every single scream on this track. I bet this is identical to any other time he may scream on the album as well. The consistency tells me it's healthy. There's no degradation to it. It doesn't get weaker or raspier or thinner throughout the performance. To me, that sounds like it's sustainable, at least for a shorter period of time. I don't know if he could do this for 10 years and not damage his vocal cords, but he could at least, it sounds like, do it for an entire day or week or whatever, however long it takes to record the album, multiple takes on each one, and come out the other side healthy-ish. And I find that to be really interesting because, like I said, it's an angle I don't get to hear with other deliveries, similar deliveries. And also, it's a delivery that sounds like most of those, where most of those are deliberately and intentionally and even vocal about the harm they are doing to their body. So it's really cool to find someone like this who does it sustainably, or semi-sustainably at least. That's very cool. Not my cup of tea though, as I mentioned. I don't like these types of shrill shrieks. It's effective for what it's going for. There aren't very many other vocal deliveries that can sound like pain and agony in the way this does. I don't like listening to that though. So I have an appreciation from a distance, as usual with most of this extreme stuff. Music. Instruments. The drums are black metal all the way across the board, just aggressive, lots of attacks all the time. Yeah. The bass is very cool because there is a jazzy element to it. I feel like they're not as jazzy as they could be. I'd like to hear something that leans a bit more away from a metallic side, but there are quite a few runs in here that feel very jazzy. And towards the end, we had a very straightforward jazz walking bass line. So it's obvious that his background is playing a part in the composition. I just maybe push it more in that direction. I'd like to... Well, here's the thing. This is obviously avant-garde metal with a root, a foundation of black metal. You ain't gonna hear me say this very often, but I'd like to see this lean more into the experimentation, into the avant-gardeness. Get away from the metal. Like I said, might be the only time you hear me say that. Avant-garde is usually a bit much for me, but here I'd like to see just how far they can push it. How far away from a traditional composition, a traditional black metal composition, can you get where the screams still don't feel out of place? How far can we go with exploring things alongside the black metal? That was one of the other things I really liked in here, was that we had those black metal screams, right? But then we paired them with a choir. That was pretty cool. Especially since the shrieks have a very clear pitch to them. I'm pretty sure it's compression on top of head voice. There is that pitch to it all. And so when you bring the choir in, you're actually adding harmony to a melody. That melody tends to be one held out note at a time, but still, it's not like adding cleans to a harsh vocal in, like a death metal group. And the thing is that you're texture layering there more than pitch layering. Here, there's definitely the texture layer. You have the compression and all that coming from the shriek, but you still have a pitch there that you can layer on top of too. And I just find that to be very cool. And when that moment came in, it was like a light bulb. I think I had a nice hearty chuckle there, and it really clicked with me, because the thing is, when I heard that, I was like, yeah, okay, that's genius. Because the thing about it is, it's one of those things that makes sense on the surface. This is a pitched harsh. Of course you can put other pitches with it and harmonize, but because I describe it often as a shrill scream, a shriek, a high harsh, I don't typically think of it pitched, even though it is. And so it's not something that came to me as a natural decision to do, even though it's quite obvious. So when I hear them do it, one, it hits me. Duh, of course that works. But the other thing is, wow, that really works. And so the mix of that aha moment, and I'm glad they did it, and now it's really cool that I'm hearing it, all clash together, and you just get this like belly laugh where like I'm having this epiphany, but also feeling really dumb at the same time. It's like a shared epiphany, because I didn't come up with it. They're showing it to me. But all I can think is, yeah, that's genius. And so yeah, it's just keep pushing in that direction. Find out where else you can take this. I think that's my big thing on it. I think that's really all I have to talk about. I have no idea what the song is doing. I don't have an emotional read on it. The song explores some dark parts, but other parts are neutral in a lot of ways, and it's all paired with his screaming, which I associate with agony and pain, as I've mentioned multiple times. It's a mishmash, clashy crash of a bunch of emotions. It doesn't mean anything to me. It's a hodgepodge of sounds in a sense. Musically, I think it makes sense. I don't think there's any part in here I was like, oh, you know, how'd they get here? Where'd they go in that direction? But like emotionally, storytelling wise, it's a collage of sounds. I don't quite understand why all of these are mashed together. And so, you know, there's a cool element to that, but I don't have anything analytical for it. It's just I, I don't have an explanation. I can't even start a sentence about it. It's so flabbergasting. And I think part of that's just the avant-garde edge. Avant-garde, by definition, is difficult to define. It pushes against the boundaries of norms, of expectations, and more importantly, rules, as far as there are rules in art. So, you know, getting a read on it, utilizing the language based on the rules is, it's just not going to work. That's just not how things are. You know, you can't explain football by using the baseball rule book. It's just not going to work. They're both sports, but you're going to have things lost in translation. And that's the same thing going on here. I think that's the only time y'all will hear me use a sports metaphor. Usually I'm food and what's the other one I use a lot? Film. I use a lot of visual metaphors. Sports though, that's a fresh one for me. Let me hit some. Are there lyrics? All I heard was like screams, ahs and oohs and e's. Like, I'm really curious if there were words to this. So let me look that up real quick. Then we're gonna wrap the video up. All right. So lyrically, it feels like this is just as experimental, avant-garde, poetically as it is musically. In that, I'm fairly confident things got lost in translation. It is in German, and I've translated it to English, and it makes no sense. Our verses are fairly identical, only the first line is changed. The first time says applied enclosed. The second line, or second time, says removed exposed. I don't know. After that, though, it says made completely darker, almost never known. Move out. It didn't start, it just continued. Which I like that line. I don't know what they're talking about, but it didn't start, it just continued. It's a very interesting way to talk about cycles. There are very, very, very few, if honestly any, things that never had a beginning. It almost feels impossible for something to never have started to just always have been. It just continues. It's a very evocative line. Again, I don't know what we're talking about, but it stood out to me. I like that. The chorus says, perception flickers glowingly in instinct, searching around, unable to avoid it, gracefulness, artful, all but a finite number. The end seems to describe something. It says nakedness, disclosed, stretchy, supple, fragile, thirsty for action right through, surrendered smoothly that you choose me. Again, it feels exceptionally poetic in the translation. I'm sure it's even more poetic. Maybe even some of this makes sense in the original language. There's still some cool lines out of it, though, that I think is awesome. But yeah, it's just as esoteric as the music is to me, so I don't have a read there either. If anyone wants to go check out the original lyrics, maybe they can read German and they want to take a stab at it. And if you discover something, you have your own take on it, feel free to put in the comments, you know. Rainer has it over on his Bandcamp rainerlandfermann.bandcamp.com. I couldn't find him anywhere else, but it's very cool that he chose to put him up there because honestly, Bandcamp's always my fallback, especially for smaller projects. If Genius doesn't have them and Bandcamp doesn't, I usually don't have anywhere else to go. And Bandcamp's usually done by the artists themselves, so I always really appreciate when they do that. Alright, that wraps it up for today. Those are my, I think I said, those are my thoughts on Kunstvoll by Rainer Landfermann. Let me know yours if you understood it. Give me your own perspectives, opinions, perspectives, other things, opinions, all that stuff. Down in the comments section. You know how this goes. Jeez, it's too late for me to be recording. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. It takes you to this. It's Linktree, but it's my Linktree. It has my links in it. You can find ways to support the channel. A link to the Discord server, and so much more. You know, Patreon's in there, special selections if you want to submit your own. You can find merch. Just go click it. There's lots of stuff in there. It's cool. It's like a little candy box of stuff. You open the lid and there's like 50 links. You're like, oh, where's this go? Where's this go? What's that? Anyways, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. It helps with the old YouTube algorithm that nobody knows how it works anyways. Alright, until next time, y'all remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.